Now that we've learnt the 7 chords of the scale and we've applied it and we've added dissonance and we've played a couple of songs, now there are some very, very important details that we need to study. So this video is very important because this and the next sequence of videos is going to be very important because I'm going to show you how to play all of the scales on the piano. And scales can be grouped into 2 categories. There are scales that have sharps in them and there are scales that have flats in them. And sharps and flats depict the black keys on the piano. So the black keys on the piano can have 2 names. They can either be a sharp or they can be a flat. And we'll get into more details with that soon as I show you all of the scales. So just to recap, we already know our C major scale. Let's just drill over that now. First 3 fingers, and then the thumb goes under. And then I go back down. Left hand, starting with the 5th finger. 3rd finger over. First 3 fingers, and then thumb under. You'll notice that the left hand is a reverse of the right hand because both hands mirror each other. So when the right hand goes up, first 3 fingers and thumb, that's the same as the left hand going down, first 3 fingers and thumb. By the way, in piano we refer to our thumb as a finger because we need all the fingers we can get on this instrument. So let's now try some of the other scales. And a very good way to describe all the scales is to refer to them as the circle of fifths because that is the system behind all of our scales. So the next scale, the neighbour of C major scale in the circle of fifths is G major. So G major is up 5 notes. We've done this one earlier. We're going to do it again now. So G major, think of it as if the scales lived on a street with each other. G major is the neighbour of C major because they have the same common notes except one note. Only one note is different between the 2 scales, so their sound properties are very similar. So we start with G major, which starts on a G. G major has an F sharp in it. And this sharp that we've added to G major is the second last note of the scale. Here's the F sharp. Now we call this an F sharp because the sequence of notes is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. So the notes are going up in a linear pattern, E, F sharp, G. We couldn't call this G flat. So a flat is to the left of the note. We couldn't call this a G flat because we already have a G in the scale. We have a G natural, this normal G here. So we couldn't call this G flat, we would have to call it F sharp. So it's consistent. So to put that in a more logical way, if you haven't quite understood or grasped what makes a sharp or a sharp is to the right of the note and a flat is to the left of the note. So for instance, if I wanted to call this C sharp, it's to the right of C. If I wanted to call this D flat, it's to the left of D. So it effectively has 2 names, and we decide which name we call it depending on which scale we played. So let's do G major in the left hand. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, F sharp, E. The same fingering applies to all of these scales. First, all the fingers, 3rd finger over, then back down again. So now let's play the 7 chords of G major. I'm going to shift it all down an octave because it sounds a bit richer down here. Chord 1, chord 2, chord 3. Now notice I have to use the F sharp because G major has an F sharp in it, not an F natural. It would sound like this otherwise, which is not what we're after. It doesn't fit. So chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, G major, chord 4 of G major, chord 5 of G major, chord 6 of G major, chord chord 7 of G major, which starts on the F sharp, the diminished chord, and chord 1 again we return to. And the same, because we're following the exact major scale, the same pattern of 1, 4, 5 being major and 2, 3, 6 being minor is maintained. So let's do that with the left hand now. 4 times in the right, once in the left. Very good way to practice it. Now let's look at D major scale. So D major is the neighbour of G major. Here it is, D major. So D major, you keep the F sharp, the first of the 3 black keys that was in G major. We keep the F sharp and we add a new sharp, C sharp. So we have 2 sharps in this scale, F sharp, C sharp. Let's play the scale. D, E, F sharp, G, thumb under, A, B, C sharp, D. I'm going back down, C sharp, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D. Left hand, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D, C sharp, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D. Now let's do this as the 7 chords. You will need to repeat this a few times when if you are a beginner. If you've played piano before and you know all of these scales, you'll be able to skip some of this. And if you are familiar with your scales, you can get straight to practicing them as the 7 chords without having to practice just the scale. Some of you will want to do both, and this depends on what level you're up to. If you're a complete beginner though, just follow the procedures we're doing now, but just add lots of repetition. We're working on our mental skills here, on our muscle memory, and our muscle memory needs repetition. Just like going to a gym and doing an exercise, you need to repeat it 3 or 4 times, so you would do that 3 or 4 times. So now the D major scale in chords. Chord 1, we've got the F sharp in chord 1. Because now we've got F sharp and C sharp in the scale. So we're replacing F and C with F sharp and C sharp. Chord 1 with F sharp. Chord 2, there's no sharps in chord 2. Chord 3, we use both sharps, F sharp and C sharp. Chord 4, no sharps. Chord 5, we've got the C sharp. Gets tricky now. Chord 6, we've got the F sharp. Chord 7, we've got the C sharp, the diminished chord, and chord 1 again with the F sharp. So we have to integrate the F sharp and the C sharp into the scale. It's no more just white keys anymore. We're now moving across the piano and we're integrating our sharps and our natural notes together. And that just creates really what playing piano is all about, the integration of the keys. So let's try that again. D major, chord 1. 2, E minor, chord 3, F sharp minor, chord 4, G major, chord 5, A major, chord 6, B minor, chord 7, C sharp diminished, chord 1, D major. Excellent. Now let's do a recap of all of the keys we've done so far. C major, chord 1. We're going back to C major scale here. Back to the C major honeymoon. C major, chord 1. D minor, chord 2. E minor, chord 3. F major, chord 4. G major, chord 5. A minor, chord 6. B diminished, chord 7. And then C major, chord 1. Now let's go to the G major scale. G major, chord 2, A minor, chord 2, sorry, B minor, chord 3, C major, chord 4, D major, chord 5, E minor, chord 6, F sharp diminished, chord 7, and G major, chord 1. Now let's go to D major now. D major, chord 1. E minor, chord 2. sharp diminished, chord 7, D major, chord 1. Let's go through some of the other sharps now. A major. So now I'm going to show you the rest of the scales on the sharps. Hold your hats. It gets fun now. A major has 3 sharps in it. Let's start on this A. The A below middle C. You could also start on this one though. The A above middle C. Let's say the A below middle C. I prefer lower. So A major has C sharp. We're keeping the C sharp from the previous scale, D major. F sharp, which was also in G major, and D major, and G sharp as the new sharp. G sharp, A. So we've got A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. You might see a pattern emerging that you're keeping the sharps from the previous scales because they're neighbours to each other in this street of scales, and we're adding a new sharp, but keeping the previous sharps that were in the neighbouring scales. So A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. Left hand, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A. And you'll notice I'm using the same fingering that I used on C major. First 3 fingers, thumb under. And the left hand starting with the 5th finger, with the 3rd finger going over. So now when we add the 7 chords of A major, every chord will now have a sharp in it. So this one is, we're really crossing the bridge into more advanced piano playing where we're integrating our sharps into our playing. Chord 1, A major. It's got a C sharp in it. Chord 2, B minor, with the F sharp at the top of it. Chord 3, C sharp minor. It has 2 sharps in it, C sharp and G sharp. Chord 4, D major, with the F sharp in it. Chord 5, E major, with the G sharp in it. Chord 6, F sharp minor, with the F sharp and the C sharp in it. Chord 7, G sharp diminished, with G sharp, B and D. And chord 1 at the top, A major, with the C sharp in it. This is a very good way to practice our scales. I'm going to do that one again. Chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, chord 4, chord 5, chord 6, chord 7, chord 1 at the top. So it's getting much harder. Let's now try E major, the next scale of the sharps. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, D sharp, C sharp, B, A, G sharp, F sharp, E. And let's do the left hand as well. So what is a scale? A scale is a group of notes that fit together, a family of notes. And that's all we're learning right now. We're learning each family of notes. I'll do the left hand one more time because your left hand may need a bit more work than your right hand, particularly if you're right-handed. Same fingering applies. Starting with the 5th finger in the left hand, starting with the thumb in the right hand. The 7 chords of E major, chord 1, E major. Chord 2, F sharp minor with 2 sharps in it. Chord 3, G sharp minor with 2 sharps in it. Chord 4, A major. Chord 5, B major, which has 2 sharps in it. Chord 6, C sharp minor with 2 sharps in it. Chord 7, D sharp diminished with 2 sharps in it. And chord 1, E major. I'm just going to play that with the right hand alone. I'm going to break the chord up now, just so you can see it really clearly on the screen. Chord 1, chord 2, chord 3, chord 4, chord 5, chord 6. Broken chords is a very good way to practice. Chord 7, chord 1 at the top, E major. Do you get all of that? Now if you're struggling with that, don't worry, you're not alone. it probably means that you just need a bit more time practicing these scales. So if that all makes sense to you, move on to the next video. But if this doesn't make sense to you, I'm going to go over all those scales all over again for you, and just so you can spend some time practicing the scales, not as full chords, just the single note scales, so your muscle memory can start to memorize them. So daily repetition of these exercises is crucial in your journey to understanding how the piano works. So I'm just going to run through all these scales, right hand, left hand, not as chords, just as scales, to refresh your memory and to really help you practice and support your practicing. C major. Left hand C major. G major. With the F sharp. G major, left hand. D major with F sharp and C sharp. Left hand D major with F sharp and C sharp. A major with C sharp, F sharp and G sharp. A major, left hand with C sharp, F sharp and G sharp. E major with F sharp, G sharp, C sharp and D sharp. Might sound harder, these scales, when I talk about all these sharps, left hand, but actually they fit the shape of our hands much better than scales that just have white keys in it. That's why the black keys are lifted on the piano. It's so the shape of our hands can curve a bit more, and that's more natural to the human hand. So actually, in the long run, these scales are easier. They fit the shape of our hand. The piano's been designed like that, with that specific reason in mind. If all the keys were just flat, our fingers would have to be flat. And that's harder. It's harder to play with flat fingers. And I'll show you one other scale, which we didn't get to earlier, B major, because it has all of the sharps in it, all of the black keys. So this was really fun. It actually is the easiest scale on the piano. Chopin used to teach his students this scale first because he thought it was the most appropriate scale to show a beginner on the piano first. Because you look at C major, I mean, it's beginner's luck because it's just all white keys and you don't really have to think about the shape. But when you get to B major, it just fits the hand beautifully. So in B major, we start on a B, we have B, C sharp, D sharp, thumb under on the E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. So the only two white notes in the scale are B and E. It's a lovely scale to sit there and just improvise on. Just put your foot on the pedal and just listen to all of those notes combine with each other. It sounds really beautiful. So you can actually then, a trick with that, you can just do a completely separate improvisation exercise, is to play all the black keys on the piano. It sounds very pentatonic, but then you add the B and the E, those two white keys with it, and you've got some lovely floaty B major sounds. Anyway, let's return back to work now. Now the left hand of B major is an exception with the fingering, because if we used this standard fingering of starting with the fifth finger, fourth finger, third finger, second finger, and then the thumb would end up here on an F sharp, which is a bit uncomfortable. So let's improve the fingering. Let's start with the fourth finger instead. 4, 3, 2, 1, and then put the fourth finger over so you don't run out of fingers. 4, 3, 2, 1, and that way the thumb always ends up on the white keys, which is much more appropriate to the shape of our hands. 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, That's the ring finger. It's the weakest finger we have, and particularly on the left hand. So you might need to use your wrist and your arm and really relax your wrist all the time when you play piano to really get the strength out of the fingers. Then the right hand, B major. Back to the standard fingering thumb. 1, 2, 3, thumb under again. It just fits the hands beautifully, this scale, B major. Such a magical scale. But the 7 chords of B major, a little more tricky to find because you really have to see where the notes fit. So B major chord 1, C sharp minor, chord 2. You can have your thumb on the black keys when you're playing the chords, that's okay. D sharp minor, chord 3. E major, chord 4. F sharp major, chord 5, that's all sharps. G sharp minor, chord 6. A sharp minor, A sharp diminished, this is the diminished. A sharp diminished, chord 7. And B major, chord 1 at the top. So we have covered all of the scales. That's half of our major scales, 50% of them. In this one tutorial, we've covered them as scales and as chords. That's a lot of work. Some people have studied the piano for years, and they come to my studio in Mayfair and they don't even know all of these things. And we have just covered them in just a short amount of time. So don't be surprised if it's going to take you a while to get all of those scale shapes into your muscle memory. Go back and repeat. Go rewind through the video and focus on 2 or 3 scales a day, or sometimes just 1 or 2 a day if that's a better appropriate speed for your learning. G major, D major for Monday, D major, A major for Tuesday, something like that. Really take your time because I've really compressed this information into a very comprehensive video. I look forward to the next part. I've got a couple of more shortcuts to show you. Stay tuned.